And so one of the areas that was not mentioned, particularly in research that needs to be put across, particularly for Nigeria, is the research on cost-benefit analysis of cassava production. And so that we can know whether Nigeria is leading in production and at the same time they are making profit. Is that okay? So let's go. Maybe some of us don't know where Kenya is. It is important to start with that. That is Kenya. Kenya is a country in East Africa. And of course, I want you just to know that when you come to Kenya, we have interesting things, particularly when it comes to one of the 7 wonders, we have the wildebeest crossing. So it is important to know where it is. It is shown there on the map. And our capital city is Nairobi. And our language is Kiswahili and English. The population is about 56 million, and our president is Dr. William Ruto. The gross domestic product is 124.5 billion USD, according to World Bank. Now, I would want to just give a background about cassava. When you see Professor giving a presentation and giving us a list of countries that are producing, leading producers in Africa, you realize Kenya was not mentioned, and that is because the bare minimum that he set was 5 million tons. And I want to say that Kenya is also producing cassava. And cassava is recognized as part of the staple food, as well as a product that has several other functions in Kenya. And we produce cassava, particularly in western and coastal region. When you come to Kenya, we are divided into 47 counties, and the counties in the western include Busia, Homa Bay, Siaya, and Migori. And in coastal region, we have Kwale and Kilifi, and eastern counties of Kitui. Those are the cassava producers. Now, when you look at the growth of cassava from 1961 to date, you'll notice that there's been a steady growth of cassava production in terms of tonnage. And here we are talking about 1.1 million tons as at 2017. And we are told that the farmers in Busia, for example, generate up to 2.5 billion from the sale of cassava, which was in 2018. Now, the current production in Kenya stands at 1 million metric tons annually, but there is a potential to exceed 3 million tons. When you look at the Kenya at a glance, you will notice that Western region produces 60% of cassava, and the consumption is about 30% in the country. In terms of value, it is around 2.2 billion Kenyan shillings that we get from cassava, and this production is spreading across 83 hectares. We know cassava as a crop with resilience, and therefore farmers are getting into it because of the drought tolerance nature of cassava. And we know also in Kenya about food security and income. 2.5 million people actually depend on cassava. So why am I saying all this? I want us to get into the thematic area of this conference, which talks about cassava in Africa, and all the discussions that have taken place on problems that farmers are facing in different regions. And I want to remove you from Nigerian context, because the previous session was like a Nigerian affair. And I want to take you to the African affair. Now, if you go with the graph that was given to us by Professor in the morning, you'll notice that he gave us a series of countries and their production levels. And many countries, almost 75%, were not on that table. What does it tell you? It tells you that we have potential for Africa within African exports. I know that we are looking for value addition processing for international exports, But have we considered exporting among ourselves within Africa? If production is too high in Nigeria and it is lower in Kenya, why not talk to Kenya and see how cassava can reach Kenya? That's a food for thought. I want to skip that slide and also indicate to you that I will skip the next slide. We know the social benefits of cassava, which is on food security and nutrition security. And I want to tell you something about nutrition. When we talk about cassava vis-a-vis other products, crop products like maize, for example, nutrition-wise, you will notice that cassava, if you consider it as a way of controlling obesity and other high-level non-communicable diseases, you'll notice that maize is more at a risk than cassava. And why am I saying so? Because cassava, a volume of it per 100 grams gives you only 40 grams of carbohydrates, while maize, 100 grams gives you 72. So you can get more obese from the maize if you are looking at the overweight. And that is the nutritional benefit of cassava. We also have the economic benefits, that is income generation and industrial use. And we cannot forget to include processing, biofuels, pharmaceuticals, among others, in the industrial use. In the environmental aspect, in our Kenyan government, we consider cassava as a soil protector, so it is responsible for soil health, and then climatic resilience. This one cannot be overemphasized. But I want to take you to this table. Cassava market size growth in Kenya. Now, in our recent survey with the projections, you notice that there is an increasing growth rate for cassava in Kenya when it comes to the market. But we are also told that come to 2029, chances are that the growth will reduce. So it is not a straight linear graph. In 2027, it could be at the peak. The growth rate could be at the peak. The question is why? And that is something that needs to be looked into. I also want to take you to this table, which is comparing Kenya vis-a-vis other top major economies in Africa. And I want to make it very interesting for you in Nigeria and other countries. You see, the growth rate in Kenya is high at 11.42. But when it comes to Nigeria, for example, it is stable, which means that there is no more growth for cassava production in Nigeria. And that should worry you. There is also high-level exponential growth for Ethiopia. And compared to Nigeria and South Africa and Egypt, the stability is maintained. That should worry you. It means that you could be the highest producer of cassava, but it is becoming meaningless in terms of economic returns. And the farmers might be on your neck very soon because there is no potential growth for the market, and so your biggest problem is not production, but market. The next question is, where do you market? Now, we have had a lot of technological examples given to us in the morning, which are very specific on how to process cassava. But then, when you process it, where do you take it? Is it going to stay as a product processed in your country, or are you going to convert it to money? The question is, how can Nigeria explore marketing this highly produced product in a processed form to other African countries that have a deficit? That should be the next thing. So that in as much as we say that you do well, the problem will stay with you forever from the marketing perspective of that cassava. And the farmers will continue to be talking about technologies, big machines, but there is no value for it. There is no value for money. Maybe there will be much expenditure given by government on acquisition of machines, and it will make people more poor and poor and poor until they turn against you. I believe God will protect you for that. Now, coming back to Kenya, I want to get straight to the potential investment on unused land in Kenya, and also the possibility of bilateral and, by the way, marketing within the continent. Kenya has a significant amount of uncultivated arable land. It is estimated that 21.3 million hectares of uncultivated land in the country is not currently cultivated. That is in the statistics. And the total land area in Kenya is about 58.04. The arid and semi-arid land is about 4.6, 80%, 46.4 million hectares. And these are classified as arid and semi-arid, which generally has low agricultural potential without irrigation. The cultivatable land, the total estimated cultivatable land is 27.4 million. And then the cultivated land at the moment is 6.1 million, which means we have 21.3 million hectares that represents the potential land that could be used for cultivation. And this is not being utilized at the moment. Now, we know that the government of Kenya, for example, recognized that the land is not cultivated and therefore they wanted to make more use of it. So the Ministry of Agriculture planned to convert the 500 hectares, approximately 202,342 hectares of idling public land belonging to various state corporations for maize production as a solution to food security. Now, I've just told you that maize is not a better alternative to cassava. And the government is also looking to expand irrigation within the potential, with the potential to equip an additional 600 hectares for the purpose of maize. It means, therefore, that Kenya is shifting to maize. But that is not the case. You'll also notice that as they shift to maize, they also recognize cassava on the same platform. Now, this is an opportunity for investment, because when your focus is on cassava and you're producing enough, then why don't you look for market in the nearest or in the neighborhood where we have less? So, promoting cassava is not a question. Government is doing it, but they are doing it complementarily with maize production. Now, I want to get into the conclusion and just focus on this so that we can understand one another in the investment framework. Now, investing in Kenyan cassava production involves farming, value addition, through processing, and exploring market opportunities. Potential investors can look at establishing small and large-scale farms processing the crop into flour, setting up businesses that support the value chain. And also we know opportunities exist to improve efficiency through mechanized processing and value addition, which can be supported by technical assistance and microfinance programs. Potential investment for cassava in Kenya include the following areas: processing cassava into higher value products like flour. Currently, we do not have processing machinery or mechanization, and therefore it's an opportunity that someone can explore. Also in starch and animals, and investing the entire value chain by supporting farmers in training, financing, and marketing access. Also, we have noticed that opportunities exist in large-scale processing plant, farmer cooperatives, and also innovation in technologies and business models. So, where can you invest? Investing in Kenyan cassava production involves farming value. But I want to say the 21.3 million hectares of uncultivated land for cassava production can be an area for investment. And of course, Jad, Swad, and the group, we have talked about this. You can explore if you can access this land in Kenya. And we know also very well that if Nigeria is producing enough of cassava, then they should first of all find local market before they think of exporting to international markets. So we have areas like value addition, which can also include things to do with waste processing, such as the peels. And I know we had a discussion with someone who wants to use these waste peels so that it can form an energy or bioenergy or fuel for that matter. We also have areas like farmer support and value chain strengthening, which comes with cooperative development, farmer financing and training capacity. And then finally, we have innovation and technology. The seed systems is still an opportunity, logistics and infrastructure, agri-tech solution. So all these many technologies that we are talking about here, they can find a place in our local neighborhood across Africa before you think of going beyond Africa. So let us talk about African cassava as an opportunity where we can dialogue between countries so that where there is overproduction and there's a glut in Nigeria, the solution can come to the neighborhood like Kenya and any other country that is not producing. I hope I've given you a hint for that matter, and you will start thinking beyond production, but looking at the cost-benefit analysis, and particularly how to make profit. The only reason why we go into farming is for profit making. So you cannot say we are producing and you are not marketing it or getting return for the money. So let's come back to Africa and call it Cassava, African Cassava Challenge. So it is not a Nigerian challenge. It is an African Cassava Challenge. And you are welcome to Kenya. You can get into negotiations with the Kenyan government and we can start developing regional treaties so that we can have a free market with the trans lines when it comes to roads and railways, and it will work for us. Thank you very much.
Asante Sana for that presentation. A round of applause for him one more time. African Cassava Challenge. Who would take that up? Having said that, we want to go to the panel discussion session H on cassava value chain development. And before I invite the the paper presenters, I want to invite the panelists to come to this side of Mesopotamia. And the first panelist is from the National Root Crop Research Institute, Umudike, Nigeria. The name is not here. I don't know who is occupying that position. Please come this way. A round of applause as they make it.